All right, here we go. Week 6, commissioner picks of the week. After a nice 4-0 week last week, I'm feeling pretty good. Even though I keep getting called out for just picking the sleeper predictions, seemed to work out last week. So I'll just let my 13-7 overall record speak for itself. But hopefully this week, some of these matchups seem like they're a little bit more up for grabs. So we'll get some different picks this week, not just those sleeper app predictions. Last week I called it the blowout week. Really wasn't anything that was too hard to guess. I think Tim and Mai's matchup was probably the closest one. I think it was 30 something points. As much as Tim was hoping for those 16 touchdowns that he needed to end the game with the win in his favor. I don't think anyone really thought that was going to happen. So this week looks like it could be a little bit more difficult. So well, let's just get right into it. So, welcome to bye weeks. Definitely adds an extra wrinkle when you're setting your lineup. Dealing with a ton of injuries this week too, and so far this season. So that added to bye weeks and how bye weeks factor into how teams decide how long to hold players out with injuries, that sort of thing. It gets a little bit interesting here, and I think this is where we see those teams with some added depth could really come into play. Maybe this also spurs some people to make some moves, some panic moves, maybe, those teams that don't have that depth. So let's get right into the matchups. I like to name these matchups whenever I can think of something somewhat clever. Sometimes it's super easy. You don't have to, really dig deep. Sometimes it's, I can't come up with anything, so I don't. But, we're calling this one the Cellar Dweller matchup. Again, not digging super deep here, but this is Trust the Process, ranked 7th. It's a generous ranking for Tim of his own team. Versus Chota, ranked 8th. Looking at Tim's team, this is going to be a tough week for a kind of a bounce back Kyler Murray game. Tim mentioned all this in his own video just a few days ago, but Kyler had, from a statistical standpoint, a tough game for fantasy purposes. Obviously played great. I think Cardinal fans and the Cardinals probably love that sort of game because Kyler's had an issue with those games in the past. So for Kyler's standpoint, good game, but for Tim's standpoint, not good enough. But this week he's got Cleveland, and I think I've mentioned it most weeks. Cleveland's D is tough. Kyler's going to have a tough time with this. That the front, obviously Myles Garrett coming at you, doesn't make anyone feel good. And then that secondary is also pretty stacked. So could be a tough game for that bounce back that I know Tim's probably hoping for, or maybe not. Don't know if he's looking for wins or if he'd rather just tank, but he's got both of these first round picks between his and Chota. So I think it's a win-win for Tim this week. So maybe Tim is going for a win. Looking at Chota's team, Tannehill's facing, I'm going to talk about the Bills a lot. I watch them the most, but Tannehill's facing that Bills defense, that made Kansas City's offense look pretty pedestrian last week, all out of sorts. Paging Patrick Mahomes, but we'll get to that. But yeah, that Bills D, they finally have front seven that can get to the quarterback, make the quarterback feel a little uncomfortable. Tannehill has had his struggles this year. He has not looked like the same quarterback as last year. Honestly, outside of Derrick Henry, none of this offense, from their offensive line to their back to their quarterback to the receivers, they've all looked sort of out of sorts. So it'll be interesting to see. This is probably not a good get right game for Tannehill, although, as I'll mention a little bit later, he may be forced to throw. If Bills offense comes out cooking like they did against Kansas City, Tennessee might have to get away from that running game a little bit more than they'd like, which could lead to more output from Tannehill. So we'll see there. Also looking at Chota's team, last week was, kind of a breakout game for Myles Gaskin. He's also got Devontae Booker, who's going to get some added run this week with the Saquon injury. Could be the perfect storm for some production there for Chota's team. The matchup I'm looking at, on Tim's side, looking at Chris Godwin versus Stephon Diggs on Chota's team. Both receivers are kind of dealing with similar situations. They both kind of have capped ceilings. um, due to their offenses on their teams that have so many mouths to feed. Not a huge fault of their own. I think both of these receivers are studs, but their quarterbacks get the ball around. Um, so it's going to be hard. I think they could be dealing with any week. It could be a breakout week, couple touchdowns, but it's very hard to predict. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking for as kind of the difference maker this week. Which one's going to have that breakout? And then looking again at Choda's wide receivers, DK seemed to have some chemistry with Geno Smith. I think obviously Geno Smith is going to be a downgrade for that entire offense, but for DK, someone who seemed to not have as much production thus far this season, with Tyler Lockett getting a lot more of the look, I think DK being able to run across the middle in some of those short to medium range routes, and also at the goal line, it seems like Geno is more comfortable throwing it there. Whereas someone like Tyler Lockett, who likes to get deep, I'm not sure that Geno's arm is built for that. So DK could have some nice chemistry with Geno, which could lead to some pretty good outputs here in the next few weeks. All right, commissioner pick. I'm going a little against the grain here. Wouldn't call this much of an upset, but I'm going to say Chota gets the win this week. Um, Key for me is I think Lamar is going to carry this squad with a huge output, and what I think is going to be a shootout against the Chargers. These are very fun offenses to watch. Obviously, the Chargers have been kind of the talk of the NFL thus far this season, and just that offense in general. So I'm hoping this one's just gunslingers, touchdown for touchdown kind of game. And if that's the case, I think Chota pulls out the win this week on the backs of that and on of Lamar and also his wide receivers. All right, next matchup. Cup to Canada, who Commissioner Tim ranked second versus Half Chubb ranked sixth. As the weeks go by, I mean, Eve's team looks better and better. I think, I've been saying this all year. I know for a while there, it felt like the curse of the commissioner picks, but seems like we've broken that a little. And, for most of these matchups, it's going to be very hard to pick against this team as it's built right now. Top to bottom, there's advantages at every position group, depending on the matchup. But looking at this week, every single group seems like there's a pretty distinct advantage. And I'm really not sure how this team has two losses. I have my first disagreement, I think, with Commissioner Tim's overall power rankings. I would put Eves at number one. And I don't really think it's close at this point. I think the record, I kind of throw it out the window. If we're looking at, points against, Eves has a ton against him. It seems like the team that everyone's team has their best game against. Could be looking at that again this week, but sometimes that's not a fair metric to kind of assess a team. So, I mean, 1 to 2, whatever. But I think Eves is kind of the top of our league at this point. For John, I kind of mentioned this last week. This matchup kind of comes at the worst possible time. I really like John's team top to bottom. John seems like from the get-go of the season has kind of dealt with the most adversity on his team. And, coming off a loss last week, this has got to feel like a must win for John. And it's just the worst team to have to go up against to get that W. It's really difficult for me to kind of find advantages in this matchup. Find, 1 or 2, 3 guys that you're likely going to need to go off in order to beat this team. Eves has shown week in and week out that he's going to top, 165 points every week, 155, whatever. But, to get your guys to step up to, somehow figure out how to score 180, I'm not seeing it this week, just given the matchups for some of the guys on this team. Looking a little deeper, I think keep an eye on Josh Jacobs for Eves. I could see the Raiders leaning more heavily on him in the run game with Gruden out, just in an attempt to kind of simplify the offense. I think you lose an offensive mind like that. I think everyone, they're going to just really try and simplify it. I could see the run game kind of being the beneficiary of that. Yeah, so keep an eye on Josh Jacobs. He's kind of had a quiet year, but he's still young, and I think he's going to be a stud. Commissioner pick, no surprises here. I'm going with Eves. I think Mahomes to Kelsey is going to be scary this week. Again, Patrick coming off a game that makes him angry. We haven't seen it this year. It's been a super down year, but we all know what he can do. So I think this connection is going to really put Eves over the top. All right, next matchup. We've got Ben ranked fifth versus the Washington Fantasy Football Team ranked third. For this one, I mean, biggest question out of this is, can Ben stop the slide? Going from what I think consensus was our top ranked team for the first few weeks. Obviously, losing Christian McCaffrey, it's not fair to kind of assess this, but at the same time, wins and losses are wins and losses. So, this is still a team that's going to be right there, I think, at the end of the season once it gets healthy. And this is the team Adam's team. This is the team to beat for potential playoff positioning. If you're Ben, this is a good one to, maybe get that upset this week. Looking at Adam's team, there's a distinct advantage for me at quarterback. Although, as we've seen, just looking at this matchup, Ben's quarterbacks have upside for big games. When they're consistent, they both kind of go off at the same time. It seems to really help carry this team. So look for that. Can anyone stop Derrick Henry? Again, going to dive into the Bills a little. I don't think their D is equipped to slow him down. I think he could have a big game. However, like I mentioned earlier, I think game script could really take the ball out of his hands. Tennessee wants to run the ball. They're willing to run the ball even if they're down 2 to 3 possessions. But if they get down big early, like first quarter, second quarter, and that Bills offense is rolling, scoring touchdowns, not field goals, they're going to be forced to throw the ball more than they like. And I think this could cap Henry's ceiling. I think he's going to get his. He's going to get in the end zone. He's going to go over 100 yards. It's just a matter of how much more than that is he going to get. And I think the only thing at this point, from what I've seen from Derrick Henry, the only thing that could potentially slow him down is game script. So we'll see if that happens this week. For Ben needs Cooper Kupp and Justin Jefferson to carry this team. Beyond them, look at Chase Claypool. I mean, this could be Chase Claypool kind of breaking out again. He's got a chance for a big game with Juju out for the year. That's a lot of targets to kind of sort out. So as long as Big Ben starts to ramp it up again and play more like he played last week, which he looked halfway decent. Chase Claypool could also be an X factor for this team. All right, commissioner pick. I'd feel a whole lot better about this pick if Christian McCaffrey plays, but I will stand behind this even if he doesn't. I'm predicting Ben gets the upset win here and stays firmly in the playoff hunt. I'm going to call this one a gut feeling because, looking at these matchups and the players on Adam's team, I don't think I think Adam is in line for a big game. Let's just say that. But, for some reason, I feel like Ben gets the win here. If McCaffrey plays, I'll feel much better about this. But Ben's gonna get the win. All right, matchup of the week. Bills Mafia ranked fourth versus Brady's third dynasty ranked first. Playoff preview. Hopefully, this is a good matchup. I said I have Eves at first. I have Ryan sitting right at second. It's close. So either way, I think this is at least on paper the matchup of the week. Looking at the matchup, Ryan's feeling the injury bug pretty heavily this week. Russ is obviously out for an extended period of time. Dalvin's questionable. He didn't get to play last week, which we kind of talked about. Hopefully he plays this week, and hopefully he's got a full production. They're not limiting him, but that's a little stressful. With two pillars of this team on the shelf, most teams wouldn't be anywhere close as far as projections, but yet he's still right in this matchup. So it just shows how good this team is. I don't think we give this depth enough credit either on this team. So we are seeing Ryan having to dip into some of his depth this week. And that leaves a little bit of an opening, I think, when looking at my team and my ability to win. So again, looking at Bills Mafia, I think this is finally shaping into kind of a more well-rounded team following the Eckler trade. However, yeah, this is still far from a surefire contender. There's still lots of holes that are kind of keeping me up at night. Just things on this team that don't feel right, that don't feel like a championship team. Namely, AJ Brown. I mean, that's the big one. I don't know what happened. I do think he's still dealing with, I don't know if it was a hamstring or a groin last season, but I think that's something that's probably still an issue for him. And then obviously the Clyde Edwards-Helaire, just when he started to seem like he was getting rounded into form, goes down with a 3+ week injury. So um, those are the two big ones. Obviously, Hawkinson is another one that's kind of a red flag at this point after starting off really well. Back to back weeks, actually 3 straight weeks where he hasn't seemed to show up. So just some areas of concern on this team. Um, I already mentioned this, but my matchup I'm looking at for this week, kind of a difference maker matchup, is Hawkinson versus Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews broke out incredibly last week, to see if he can back that up after what has been for Mark Andrews kind of a quiet year thus far, and then Hawkinson. I mean, these two are on opposite trajectories at this point, so hopefully for my team, this kind of reverses course here. Commissioner pick this week. I'm going Bills Mafia. I'm going hot hand here. I'm kind of, you see it in my team. I'm likely benching AJ Brown. I think I'm going to stick with Marquise Brown this week as my starter. He's historically been such a boomer bust prospect that I've been burned by him in the past. So I haven't wanted to put him in there, but AJ is kind of forcing my hand at this point. So anyways, I think that coupled with the more running back heavy lineup that I'm throwing out there, the consistency behind running backs opposed to wide receivers, I think it's going to help carry my team in what, again, I think will be a very close matchup. For some reason, all of my matchups are closest one of the week. Probably shows that I'm not as good of a team as I think I am, but I do think I'm going to sneak out a win this week, and I will be interested to see what Commissioner Tim feels about that in next week's power rankings. I'm hoping I get the win and continue my trajectory to the top. So that's it for this week for my picks. So I'm looking at Chota, Cup to Canada, Ben, and Bills Mafia. Got some upsets in there, so hopefully everyone gets off my ass about the projections and everything like that, and we'll keep the ball rolling here. All right, future focus. I'm going to start today with Malik Willis. He's the quarterback from Liberty University, 6'1", 215 pounds. He's a Auburn transfer and kind of burst onto the scene last year in 2020. He really broke out once he got to Liberty. Kind of a man amongst boys here. I mean, his talent level is so far above what he's getting in this conference. But last year, he completed 64% of his passes for 2,260 yards, 20 touchdowns, 6 INTs. He also ran for 14 touchdowns and 944 yards. I mean, the guy's a beast. This year, he's kind of just, picked up where he left off last year. Let me go through kind of what I'm seeing as the good. So really impressive arm talent. He has no problem pushing the ball downfield vertically, and he has the arm strength to easily rifle passes, kind of just with the flick of the wrist. It doesn't seem like it takes him a whole lot of effort to launch the ball 60, 70 yards. We see oftentimes he has some issues with setting his feet that I think may limit some of his power, but it doesn't slow him down. So that just really speaks to the kind of the arm strength he has. On top of the arm strength, he's also shown the ability to loft in touch passes downfield. Oftentimes we see players that have strong arms. Everything's a laser, even those downfield passes, and that makes it really easy for DBs to break it up or intercept it. He's shown the ability to do more a la Drew Brees, Russell Wilson, that kind of drop-in floater pass that receivers like so much that does not give DBs any chance at breaking that ball up. So he's showing both, which is pretty rare. He has a quick release. He can make plays off script. He has impressive deep ball accuracy. I kind of mentioned that already, but no matter where he is, inside or outside the pocket, he can still make plays. He makes defenses incredibly nervous when he gets out of the pocket because he is a true dual threat quarterback. He has the quickness to dart up field if needed, and has good speed to accelerate to be able to run away from some/most defenders. In his conference, it's been almost all defenders he's been able to run by, hence the almost 1,000-yard rushing last year. I think when he gets to the NFL, something he's going to have to adjust to is obviously everyone's faster, bigger, stronger. So I think when he gets to the NFL, he's going to have to figure out how to stay in the pocket more. But at the college level, he's able to make plays all across the board. Um, he has dangerous ability to ad lib and make big plays on rollouts. Again, I already kind of mentioned this, but he almost seems to thrive when he gets out of the pocket. We see this in the NFL today, all over the place. This is kind of the quarterback. It seems like the mold right now, the modern quarterback, the ability to do this, and he should fit right into that. And then also, he's a tough runner. He'll lower his shoulders to plow through contact. It hasn't slowed him down at the college level, but again, going back to the bigger, faster, stronger, he's going to need to be really careful doing this at the next level to avoid injury. We see this across the board. I mean, Josh Allen dealt with this for a few years at the beginning where he wanted to lower his shoulder into everybody instead of sliding or going out of bounds. Malik definitely seems like the kind of guy that's going to need to be taught this because he wants to fight for every yard, which is a good thing, but it's not a good thing if you're on the sideline hurt. So that kind of segues into my needs improvement. He has some really raw elements to his game as a passer. I think the biggest improvement is needed in his field vision. He has to get better at reading defenses. He has to get better at working through his progressions and throwing the ball to the right receiver. It's glaring. He really can stare down his primary receiver. I think a big part of this is that the talent level of the receivers that he has at Liberty is not great. Um, and I think the main, I can't think of his name, but the main guy he throws to, I think is a leg up. So, but obviously, when you're going to a bad team in the NFL, you're going to need to get away from this. So you're going to throw the ball interceptions 20 times a year. So something to work on there. And then at Liberty, he's had a lot of receivers that run wide open. And he's going to need to get more comfortable kind of throwing into tight windows at the next level. I think this is definitely a necessity for him. Something he's going to have to work on is just his comfort level when, the receiver's not open, throwing them open, throwing into spots that only they can catch it. So that's Malik Willis kind of in a nutshell. He is shot up from, out of basically nowhere to likely at this point in the year could be top overall pick. Kid looks really good. So we'll keep an eye on that. And yeah, that's about it. So likely one that's going to come off very early in our rookie draft for a quarterback needy team. That's all I got for this week. Hope everyone has a good rest of the weekend. Congrats to all my Boston Red Sox fans for advancing. Go Giants tonight. Hopefully we join you guys in the ALDS, CS, ALCS. I don't know. And then, yeah, good luck to anyone top shotting today, getting your run it backpack. Should be dropping here for all you OGs. And, well, it actually probably is already dropping. So good luck with that. But hope everyone has a good weekend, and I will see you all next week.